How important is it to get your business done early?
Like Uwe said earlier, it's very difficult. We're in a very competitive market. We're up against very big clubs, with Blackburn coming down, competing with Wigan, Rotherham, and even Portsmouth. So there's a lot of clubs that are much bigger than us and have much bigger financial support than we are, even though we are competitive. We work organised throughout the year, so it makes it easier when we make decisions. We make them quicker than the others, and we don't take holidays like most of the other people. So I'll always nip away for a couple of weeks. We tend to swoop in and get the players. We always knew that negotiations with Ryan and Bull were going slow, and we always knew that Conor would leave. So with then our sporting director going from Middlesbrough to Leeds made the Louis Cole much easier and we got him at a great price as well. With McElhaney starting so well with Oxford, we were on that very quickly. So when the season was drawn to an end, that was very close. And so it's all about being organised and knowing exactly what we want. We know how we play, and based on that, we tend to swoop in quicker than most of the others.
Thank you very much. So, like I said, we can go on to all matters now. The floor's open. We'll go on. We're aiming for 9 o'clock, but it'll within reason. As long as you've got questions, I'm sure, as long as it's not too late, the gentleman here will continue to answer them. So, does anybody want to start off with a question? If not, we've got loads on the email. Right, we'll go to email. So let me find a question from Martin Crane on Facebook this afternoon. He's asked a question for Uwe, I dare say. What's happened to Nick Horton? Is he still at the club? He burst onto the scene, won Young Player of the Season, and now doesn't play for the development squad. What's happened to Nick Horton?
Yeah. Want me to say that? Nick Horton. I spoke to Nick end of last season. I think every manager or every head coach has a certain way to play, and we set out, since I came here, we set a clear profile on our players we want to bring to the football club, in which age we want to bring to the football club, and I think that was in line with Gretar and with the chairman. And Nick is not really in that profile. We talk about high pressing, we talk about quick transition, we talk about athleticism, and Nick is a very, very big talent, technically very good, but Nick needs players around him to let him shine, and I personally have a different philosophy, and this is why Nick found it hard to get regular playing time. End of last season I spoke to Nick and said, Nick, he's 23 years old, I think it's very important now that you play regular football, and unfortunately I can't guarantee you regular playing time here. And this is, since then Nick is looking to find a club. He's contracted with us, and I'm sure the talented player he is, the quality he has, I think he has his admirers, and I'm sure in the near future we will tell you where Nick will play football, either on loan or on permanent.
Just a reminder that you've still got these pieces of paper on the desk, so if you're not keen on putting your hand up, feel free to write you down your question and pass it on, and we'll read it out. This is a question from Mike, who's in the room this evening, and he's asked this to Uwe, but I think Gretar will probably be more the person to answer it. I'm interested in how the loan system works. Do clubs send out lists of available players, or is it a case of ringing everybody up, trying to find who's available?
First of all, we scout every team in the country, and normally we find players from there under 23s or players from the Championship or the Premier League, Bailey Cargill. So we scout them and we alert teams what we're after, what profile, who we want, and then we're one of many. But the quicker we get in, the bigger case that we have for the player to join us, like with Bailey. There was big clubs that were after him, and based on going in early, knowing exactly what we want, but they are scouted first. We scout the players first, then we make a move and we contact the clubs, contact the relative people in the football clubs that have control over those matters, and hopefully we can align then the agent, the player, the girlfriend and the club, so everything needs to be aligned. It's very complicated if you're trying to get players that come further than Manchester, so there's a lot of things that we need to think about. So getting in early and knowing that the player wants to join us and the club wants them to come to an environment and have someone like Uwe, the facility that the chairman has provided, have a absolutely top class coach like Uwe. We are a good club to go to, so there's a lot of clubs now that in the past was harder to get. Now we find it easier, but we also need to be careful not to contact clubs because they say yes straight away. So we need to be very selective who we ask for, and we have a really good relationship with Uwe to know exactly what we want, and that's worked well.
Another one on the note from Matthew, and this is aimed at Uwe. Even though you've won all of your league games so far and you've kept clean sheets in all of them as well, I read in the paper that you're still disappointed. Why is that?
Fake news. No, sometimes you need to read the text and not to read the headline. So the text was absolutely correct. I think as a coach I hardly found a coach who is permanently satisfied with purely the result. I think it's always something you want to do better, you want to optimize, you want to have the perfect game, the perfect win, the perfect scenario on the pitch, and that is, I drive through perfection. And I didn't say I'm disappointed with the start of the season. I'm very happy with the start of the season, but I'm also realistic that we need to improve. We need to improve this year. The season, the league is harder. The chairman wants to sell players, and I think the last thing what the players need to read is that everything is wonderful because we won 3 games. So it has to be the good balance. Internally, we give the players a lot of praise. We're showing them a lot of DVDs and videos, how good they're doing, but we're also pointing the finger on things we have to be better. I like to control games, and that is my biggest thing. I'm striving to control more games. Being good at what we are, organization, transition, counter-attacking, pressing. The next step is, that is the hard thing, is to gain more control with the ball. And that will take time, but that is what I want to do, and I think that gives us then the chance to do something unbelievable here. And I think that is all what I want, is develop young players but also get the results.
Here's a question from Facebook from Callum Brown, and I'm sure this is a question that would have been interesting to see what he would have said 10 years ago. But where does Andy see himself and the club in 10 years' time?
10 years' time, that's an awful long time. We always sit down at the beginning of the season and we will have an open and honest conversation, and we will discuss the targets for the coming season. And that is common practice, and I think it's best practice at any football club. I think 10 years is an awfully long time, and I mean, so much has changed in 10 years here at Fleetwood. It's changed beyond recognition, from stadium to no changing, to poor changing rooms to no training ground. The transformation has been incredible. In the next 10 years, I would like to be, my dream scenario would be, I've just gone off of me. Say no, hello? Damn, right. I would love to be comfortable in the Championship with an increased fan base, with local players coming through to the first team. I'd like to be a club that can sustain its own, can stand on its own 2 feet, and is not reliant on one man, i.e. me, writing a big cheque every year. Because, again, I just think it's in the best interest of the club that the club can stand on its own 2 feet. And, again, the model that we have now is we sign players who are on that upward curve. And what will happen naturally is these players, if we continue to do as well as we are, will have admirers. And it becomes very difficult to stand in a player's way. And we had this a few years ago with a certain one in the Premier League, when a club comes along and offers 10 times his current wage and offers him the chance to move up 3 or 4 divisions. So if somebody comes along and offers one of our players 10 times his wage, or even 4 or 5 times his wage, then I feel obliged as the custodian of the club that one of the reasons why we sign these players, it sold to them at the beginning that we want to be that football club, that stepping stone that can help them to the Premier League or to the very top of the Championship. We want to see them on Match of the Day, and we want to see them in an England strip and performing at the very top level. So that would be my my target, to be comfortable in the Championship, to have bigger crowds, to have traded well, and to have a sustainable football club. That would be my target.
10 years ago, it probably would have been to replace Nathan Pond, I say. Still not managed it. Another question from Facebook is from Martin Crane, and it's to Uwe. Does Uwe watch the development squad, and does he see that as a potential pool of future first team players? If so, is there anyone we should be looking out for?
I watched every game this season. We compliment to Paul Murray. I think this season, I see the same identity what the first team has. We play the same style, the same formation. We're always using the development games not only to play development players, we always mix it up with 4 or 5 first team players, and everybody takes those games very serious, and I'm happy what I see. I think in general our duty is to at least bring 1 player each year into the first team squad, minimum, hopefully maybe 2, to be part of the first team squad. So that means Jack Sowerby made that step. He played last season for us. He's a good player, and but obviously the club also moved on. You know, when we came last year, we talked about surviving 50 points. The club have moved on, the quality of players moved on. That obviously makes it harder for the development players to break through, not only into the squad, but into the first 11. But never mind, I think Jack Sowerby, I'm very happy with his development. There is a few other players. Nedison got his debut. Reed went out on loan, scored twice for Wrexham, and there's certain pathways for those players to come into us directly or via a loan move, and I think that is the right way. Yes, I'm watching the games, yes, we're taking it very serious, and there's a very short communication between Paul Murray and us in the first team level.
Anybody? There you go, a couple of hands are going up now, good.
Hi Andy, it's speculation in the papers today surrounding a certain Mr Vardy and Chelsea. Should that transfer occur and go through, would any windfall from that be available through Uwe for the squad, or would it go into further development of the ground?
All round his pocket.
First of all, I have no idea of any speculation about Vardy. I don't know anything about it. I'm joking, of course we know about it. And the answer is yes, there is potentially a hugely significant sell-on if he was to move to the kind of figures that are being speculated about. It would be wrong, I think it's impossible for us now to say if that was to happen, what would happen to how we would spend any sell-on money, because it hasn't even happened, and I don't think it's right to kind of spend money before you have it, but it would be a pleasant problem, and we watch with great interest the developments at Stamford Bridge and Filbert Street.
Thank you. Graham Holmes, one for Gretar. How extensively do we look outside of the UK for potential players?
Me and you, we have our contacts abroad. We both worked in Scandinavia. I'm Scandinavian, obviously, but in German market, I've worked in the German-speaking European nations. But it's always difficult. For example, in England, football in England is very well documented on TV, news programmes, and magazines or papers. But still, we have 3 full-time members of staff looking at football games from the levels that we can get players from, and we have 10 part-time scouts. So just to cover what is obviously covered here, to then go abroad and try to do it as well as we do it here is very difficult. So we try to do it when we can get the right ones in, but it's very, very difficult because even the Premier League clubs have few full-time members just living in those countries. So go there and get the information from lower division in Germany or in Scandinavia, and salaries are often higher in abroad than around League One. Championship is more competitive to other countries, that's why there's a quicker one for them to come in, but at our level it is very hard to find the right ones, but they are out there, and we are very open to it because we think that there's a lot of quality out there in the rest of Europe to come in, but they have to be far in between. We have to be very careful what we take in and what we take. But if we find the right one, we'll definitely not turn our backs to it.
I play for Fleetwood Town Juniors, and whenever there's a ticket spare, like if someone doesn't come from our family, we give it to someone from our team, and then we can get them going and coming to the games.
Well done.